This video is for the full moon in Scorpio, and this is week 3 of the Taurus Lunar Cycle. The Taurus Lunar Cycle has been all about grounding in what is most important to us and how can we start to build up the resources that's going to allow us to go after what's most important to us. And by resources, that can be financial resources, it can be material resources, and it can also have to do with our time and our energy and our emotions and how it is that we're able to organize those things so that we're able to put them towards the things that we want to create and that we're trying to work on within this, I would say, zodiac year and within this next chapter of our lives. The beginning of the cycle up until this point has largely been about that, how to ground in the way that we're learning about how to move forward with what it is that we want, how we can ground in the boundaries that are needed to support ourselves, how we can ground in our ability to move past any limiting cycles that are keeping us thinking that we're not capable of going after the things that we want or making us too scared to go after the things that we want. And it was also being a lot about showing up to improve the way that we uh, use our self-expression as to what it is that we want and truly stand firm in what we want to other people so that they can learn to respect that about us, so that they can admire us for the things that we're standing up for in our lives that we want to go after. And then again, how we can start to look at organizing our resources that we need to get there into our daily life, into our daily living, so that we are taking care of ourselves physically, emotionally, behaviorally, all of those things in ways that are going to support our schedules and our daily routines so that ultimately we show up in our best selves to be of service to other people based on the things that we love and based on what's most important to us. And before we reached this full moon in Scorpio, we were really honing in as to the relationships that we have with other people and where they're being reciprocal, where they're balanced, where there's diplomacy involved, and where there's mutual respect between people so that we can support mutual growth for everyone in our lives. Like that's what's most important. And so now as we reach the full moon in Scorpio, we're really starting to be held accountable for our ability to sit with our emotions and transform any emotions that are really clinging to us, that are keeping us stubborn or stuck in perhaps relationships where our resources of time and money and energy and emotions are tied to other people and to maybe their world and their journey and the things that they want for themselves, and where we're not being seen for the things that we want to do. Not only that, but a lot of this has to do where we're stuck in our emotions, where there has been grief involved and we're being held stagnant because it's been very difficult to move through the muck and the ick of the emotions in order to progress and move forward and evolve those emotions into energy that can be used to go forward. So that's really what this week is all about. How are we able to face the emotions that are in front of us, dig up from the bottom of the earth, and well, really in Scorpio, we're talking about like the bottom of the swampy water. Where is all that stuff underneath us that we can free up now, that we can transform? Scorpio is often attributed to the sign of like Phoenix rising from the ashes, right? So where is it that we are holding on to things? But when we shed all of that, when we let go of the stuff that we're really clinging to, that need to control outcomes, that need to control our resources that we share with other people and be the ones that are in charge of saying where this is going, a lot of that has to do with once we're able to let go of that, we're able to truly transform and regenerate and do something new. We're able to go explore as to how to continue to evolve the things that we're trying to evolve in this next chapter of our lives. Also with Scorpio, we can sort of sit with the fact that we can learn where we are in power, right? Where we've been giving away our power to other people. And so sometimes that involves, as we just moved through that energy of looking at our relationships, sometimes it involves letting go of relationships, letting go of places where we share our resources or where we've been dependent on other people's resources. That has been, a big theme in my life. And it's something that I've learned to truly work with over the last several years, where I've had to let go of the way that I sit in relationships with other people, how dependent I am on other people's resources, be that time or money or energy or emotions, in order to build up my own, in order to learn how to be more independent and to learn where I am in control and where I am sitting in my best power. Because ultimately, when I do that, if I'm showing up with the best light for myself, if I'm showing up with the best intentions for myself, then I'm not showing up as power hungry. I'm showing up where my strengths lie. And I need to kind of look at the resources that I give to other people and understand how we can work with that together. Truly what shared resources is all about, the merging of people's energies so that we can create and move forward. Scorpio is also attributed to our secrets, our innermost fears, the things that we don't like to share with other people, the things that we hold below in our subconscious. And so when we do that and we release that and we let go of all those outcomes and all those expected things that we have in our world and all the attachments that we have to other people, we really can start to move forward. So that's the set off of this week. And we started entering into that energy yesterday. I dropped a little bit of a video in Instagram and maybe Facebook, where I was talking about it being Mother's Day. And so, for some of us, myself included, I lost my mom a year ago. And in doing so, it's really like I got to see the progress of the entire year and where I sit now versus all the grief and the ick that I had been moving through over the past number of years when my mom was sick and we were losing her. And it really played havoc on my relationships with people in my life. And it changed a lot of relationships in my life because through that, I had to look at where my energy was going so that I could be able to take care of my family, so that I could be able to grow the things that I want to grow in my world. But that was really hard to do up until this year, after really sifting through, finally losing her, finally starting to take my life as the forefront and going after the things that I want. But we all sit through those energies. We also have people in our world, and if it's you, then my heart goes to you, who have lost not only their mothers, perhaps they've lost their children far too young. Perhaps there are those of us that have been trying to get pregnant and we're not able to be pregnant. Then there's those of us that don't want to be mothers, right? Like there's all kinds of feelings and energies that may have arisen over the weekend as you're spending time with your own families, as you're spending time with the family that you want to grow, but this is the family that you're with right now, all of those things. And so moving through those energies, seeing where you sit within your own personal cycles, seeing where you sit within your inheritance, when you look at your own mother and you look at that path and you look at your separation from that and what you want for yourselves, where do your resources go? Where do your resources go when you're looking at your partnership with your husband or your wife? And how are you able to merge yourselves together so that you're really supporting each other's growth and using those resources for everybody's best interests? And as we progress through this week, we start to move into the sign of Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is all about sending that telescope up into the sky and seeing what's possible, going after it to learn about different cultures, to learn about different perspectives, to see different people, different places, to learn about different things that are going to be able to further expand your knowledge and take you even further into your higher beliefs, your higher values, the things that you are trying to build into your existence. And by the end of the week, we'll move into Capricorn energy, which is a heavier, more dense energy in terms of it's asking us to put together a framework that's going to help us build this foundation that's going to sustain us in the long term, that's going to speak to the public image that we have and that we want to put forward as we go about the things that we want. Capricorn is associated with our legacy. Capricorn is associated with our careers and our professions. And that can be anything. And that can be as a student, that can be as a stay-at-home mother or father, that can be as working in your professional life in a career. And so what is it that you want to be known for? And if we go all the way back to the beginning of the cycle, and we're talking about how we can ground in our values and our beliefs at the things that we're trying to bring from just visionary perspective into reality, into our existence, that Capricorn energy at the end of this week is asking us to show up. How are we showing up? How can we be held accountable by putting together things that are going to support that framework or that foundation that's going to keep us going? That's the energies of this week. Week 3 is attributed to that accountability message. And as the moon starts to wane, as the moon starts to get less bright and get smaller and smaller from the bright light that it is right now, we're not necessarily building and going after, but we are being reflective, and we are being reflective in terms of that accountability and how we are showing up and things that we can be doing that will support us in the long term. What kind of discipline do we need to practice? What kind of rules do we need to set for ourselves to be able to continue to work through the emotions, to work through the attachments to expected outcomes in order to build the attachments to new things and the outcomes that we are hoping to achieve within the next year and years to come? And that will wrap up this week before we hit into the last week of the Taurus lunar cycle. And that will be with the last quarter moon in Aquarius. And that has a whole lot to do with how we can start to make choices with the way that we contribute to the groups that we belong to, be that family groups or work groups or friendship groups, or just how we volunteer our time in society and how we fit within our communities. And that will, take us through the rest of the cycle. So I'm going to focus on that next week, but I wanted to touch base as to where we started 3 weeks ago, how we moved through that clarity of what it is that we want, and how we last week we're really working through the awareness as to how to improve how we show up for ourselves in the world in terms of our expression of what it is that we want. And this week, how we're showing up in that accountability and really standing true to what we want and showing the world. And within that full moon energy, I will also touch base on the fact that we're seeing what other people want. And that's a lot to do with that transforming and transmuting energy that Scorpio offers, because sometimes we're going to have those power struggles with other people as we're fighting for what we want. Sometimes that's smooth sailing. If we're really following our cycles, if we're really looking deep within and we are reflective, then we're showing up in our best selves and we're being compassionate and empathetic to people and what they're trying to build for themselves. So I encourage everyone to work with these energies over the week, and I'll have my usual little short stuff that I send throughout the week, but that's it for today. And I'll see you next week with the last quarter moon, and that will be happening in the sign of Aquarius. Take care.